I think we may finally be at a stage where DeFi is going to go like mainstream.
We essentially need to replenish and buy more Bitcoin and maintain that leverage as price moves up. And so we're constantly dynamically rebalancing our 50-50 LP position and making sure we have the leverage to capture all these moves.
The projects are like raising the bar in the industry by solving genuine, real problems. They're backed by real communities. The project teams themselves have deep and strong experience, and they're able to execute on that vision. And the YieldBasis team have all of that.
The end play will be when the United States as a country adopts Bitcoin as the major asset to use in the reserves.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. I'm Matty, one of the two co-founders of Legion. I'm joined today by Dave from Kraken and Michael from YieldBasis, and of course Curve. Really excited to get into this chat today about the partnership between Kraken and Legion and bringing YieldBasis as the first project to that partnership. Before we dive in, let's just get some brief introductions. Dave, do you mind giving an introduction first?
Yeah, sure, Maddie. Thank you. So I'm Dave Morris. I'm one of the lead product managers on the Kraken launch platform.
Let's keep it short and simple. Michael?
Yeah, I'm the founder of Curve and now founder of YieldBasis. And yeah, I think that's pretty much explains it.
It certainly does. And yeah, for myself, as mentioned, one of the founders or co-founders of Legion, platform for doing on-chain fundraising and merit-based allocation. And I think with this partnership with Kraken, we're really excited about, scaling up the distribution and bringing top quality projects to longtime users and, everybody. Everybody gets access, but kind of with some of these merit-based tools, we can customize and make sure that projects are getting their tokens into the hands of value-add users, value-add investors, even more so. So to switching gears or diving right into YieldBasis, Michael, I know as a technical guy, as a really smart guy, there's a lot to talk about with YieldBasis, but I'm going to force you to give kind of the elevator pitch, right? So in one sentence, what is YieldBasis? How would you describe it?
Well, you can have two types of elevator pitch. For those users who are not really deep into DeFi, it would be like you can YieldBasis allows you to deposit crypto, use it for market making, and earn more of this same crypto from its volatility. But for those who are into DeFi already, YieldBasis solves the old standing problem, which is impermanent loss. So it's the solution for impermanent loss.
Amazing. I mean, we've seen other solutions or claims to be solutions to impermanent loss previously. All they've really done is still have impermanent loss and then use token emissions, right, to pay back people, kind of economically offsetting
that's one of the ways, which is not quite working, right?
Yeah. So that's not what YieldBasis is doing, right?
Absolutely not. A YieldBasis could work without emissions at all.
Amazing. So in one sentence, then again, elevator pitch. Why does YieldBasis matter? Like, why? Asked differently, why are you working on this?
Right. Well, so far, as everyone knows, I worked on Curve. And when Curve came around, it's essentially introduced the world's first concentrated liquidity for stablecoins. So you could swap between stablecoins at least 100 times more efficiently than anywhere else on chain, and even more efficiently than on centralized exchanges. What happened after that? Liquidity for stablecoin pairs moved really on-chain. So centralized exchanges lost to on-chain DEXs in this. Well, the only problem is that the stablecoin to stablecoin exchanges, or let's say like exchanges, so let's say staked ETH to ETH also counts, they are a niche, right? So really, if you centralized exchanges even didn't realize it's an important niche. They thought, who really needs to sell dollars for dollars? Well, apparently people do, but it's indeed not the most huge market ever. Where the real market is for spot exchanges is exchanges in volatile pairs. But all the ways to market make for volatile pairs so far involved something which was called impermanent loss. So what is impermanent loss? It's basically this. Imagine you want to market make for, I don't know, for Bitcoin. So you put Bitcoins and US dollars to your automatic market maker or to your trading bot, doesn't matter. And after that, well, market maker is swapping between Bitcoins and US dollars and making you fees. That sounds great. But if Bitcoin price goes up, the market making algorithm has to sell some of the Bitcoin. And because it sells some of the Bitcoin, it misses out on the upside. So if you did not put these assets in the market maker and put your US dollars in a bank and Bitcoins in cold wallet, you probably would be better off with that financially. You probably would have had more money if you just stored your Bitcoin in your cold wallet and waited while all this ETF craziness happened and whatever.
Yep.
So it just appears that market making is not profitable. And
Well,
then
impermanent loss.
yeah. That being said, if price of Bitcoin goes back down and back to where it was when you started, maybe you discover that yes, you earned something from the fees and all this impermanent loss is rolled back. So yes, it's impermanent in this sense. But what happens if Bitcoin price doesn't go back down? Because it doesn't like to go down for some reason. Then, and that's what you hope for, then you apparently earn less than holding your Bitcoin and not giving it to anything. And that's what Bitcoin maxes do. They say, my Bitcoin is safe in my cold wallet.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Fair.
Anyhow, and YieldBasis essentially solves that. So it allows to make ever-increasing quantities of Bitcoin.
Amazing. Earning yield on your Bitcoin while removing impermanent loss, and then that sounds like a pretty good deal to me. Dave, is that your favorite thing about YieldBasis, or what's your favorite?
Yeah, it's definitely what excites me the most. I think like if one of DeFi's oldest problems, it's like a holy grail type of problem in impermanent loss, and so for the first time, we're going to have a genuine solution that is solving for this. And I think that is like a true, like innovative step change that we don't always see from day to day,
Amazing. And I mean, along that point, obviously there's been a lot of work going in behind the scenes with Kraken and Legion, teaming up together on this initiative. Why YieldBasis as the first sale under this initiative?
Yeah, because I think that YieldBasis encapsulates like the things that when we were first speaking about doing this partnership, for me, it requires three things, right? The projects are like raising the bar in the industry by solving like genuine real problems. They're backed by real communities, and the project teams themselves have like a deep and strong experience, and they're able to execute on that vision. And the YieldBasis team have all of that. And really, for me, Kraken's role is really just to be a bridge to allow people to safely move across into crypto and see what like the possibilities are. And I think YieldBasis is one of the possibilities.
Amazing. Well, when it comes to being a founder, buying tokens, right, investing in the markets, it's not just being contrarian; it's being right and contrarian. Ultimately, that leads to outperforming the market. And YieldBasis, I think, has fixed the problem that like many people have just given up on. Right, many people think it's impossible to fix impermanent loss. So removing impermanent loss is really quite the edge here. I'd say quite the contrarian bet. And obviously, Michael, you touched on it, right? Impermanent loss, to keep things simple, is basically a problem that if you provide liquidity, if you LP and price changes and that price change persists, you end up less rich essentially than you would if you didn't LP, right? If you just held
Yes.
instead. Why has impermanent loss been so difficult to solve until now?
Yeah, well, I would say it's not not so difficult to remove impermanent loss. It is difficult to make it while keeping the profits.
Mm.
So
So you can get rid of impermanent loss by getting rid of the yield. It's just
yes,
keep
well,
the yield,
and
get rid of impermanent
to
loss.
be fair, when we get rid of impermanent loss here, some of the yield indeed goes away. So it's not free. And it is not free with pretty much anything. So one of the ways you mentioned that you can compensate for impermanent loss with emissions and take all the admin fees and hope that admin fees will cover the emissions. They actually don't. So anyway, it appears that you do too many emissions and you can have a death spiral if of your token if you compensate impermanent loss with it. I think Bancor did try to do that, but yeah, it's you cannot guarantee this way. There is a smarter way, which some of the projects do. I think the first one which offered that was Squeeze by Open, where they made a special option which kind of allows you to hedge impermanent loss with their product. Mathematically it works. Problem is who is going to sell you this option and why. So usually that should be speculators, right? And I think there is also a project which tries to do something similar right now, but yeah, it's the same problem. If you buy an option, you buy it from someone. Why would they sell it for you? And yeah, usually that's speculators who bet on the upside or downside or whatever, and they can do this bet in a form of this option. And it's incredibly hard problem to bootstrap both parts of the market. And from what I've heard, it's really never these options really never went above some, I don't know, 50 million scale maybe at best. That and they, when you hit these limits or even before that, it appears that these options are just too costly and maybe you overpay for these options. You probably pay more than you earn. Not great. There is another way. Another way is, of course, to hedge the other side on perps. And actually, this is what Ethena is doing in some sense. Well, not exactly, right? They are doing that statically. They are doing that for, you deposit like your US dollars. They buy Ethereum, stake it, and hedge it somewhere, let's say on perps.
1-to-1 hedge. It's a non-type.
You can do it. You can do it with AMMs. You can bring your funds into AMM, let's say Uniswap 2 or 3 or whatever, and you hedge some other part in the AMM, and you pay or collect funding. Problem is, it only works if you, today at least, if you bring US dollar, because then you need to short ETH or BTC or whatever, and people are normally long those, so you collect funding and you are kind of net positive, plus you earn fees, but you still have the thing that you need to adjust your position and you lose funds on that. And it appears that with at least ETH, you probably earn more than if you do Ethena way rather than if you go and hedge AMM this way. And also it's easier because you don't have to adjust your position all the time. So that kind of manifests that it doesn't actually economically work. And if you want the other way, if you want to earn money on crypto, then you kind of, it's even worse, because funding is such that you need to pay when you loan crypto, and you essentially need to loan crypto, so you short dollar, and you also need to adjust it all the time, so you pay more, and it appears that you are in negative territory. So this is hard. With options, it's easier, but it's the same problem, because your counterparty is speculators, and speculators, overall, speculators want to go long than short, so you you have an issue. And with YieldBasis, you kind of, well, what you do is this. When you create your liquidity, it creates liquidity in Curve pools. And Curve pools, they apparently, many people don't realize, they're Curve crypto pools, which trade volatile pairs. They do have concentrated liquidity, and they do have it since 2021. And it is automatically managed. So, which... well, why aren't they used more today? Because Curve is famous for stablecoin swaps, but why not crypto swaps? Because they exist for a while. Well, apparently, Curve crypto swaps, by design, have the same impermanent loss as Uniswap 2, for example. Right? So you have exactly the same problem. You have concentrated liquidity, yes. This concentrated liquidity allows you to earn more. I don't know. Maybe twice more if you maximize for APR than Uniswap 2, right? But you still have impermanent loss. And even if you earn twice as much, it's still not covering the impermanent loss. So it's not really interesting for a retail LP. And what YieldBasis does, apparently, if you take LP of Curve or of Uniswap 2, works equally well in some sense, and leverage it by a factor of 2 all the time. And if this leverage is also compounding leverage. So compounding leverage is, let's say, leverage which you leverage more as it goes up and deleverage as it goes down to keep LTV 50% all the time. If you do that, then in your resultant position, the impermanent loss is disappeared, and you have just a position priced as your supplied asset.
Right.
But it's not free, apparently, because this, well, first of all, normally you have, well, leverage is borrowing, and you need to pay for borrowing. But it's not even the most important part. The most important part is that adjusting this leverage, it does spend money. And it's not zero. So
is that mainly gas costs to constantly hedge?
No, it's not
It's
gas.
slippage.
It's fundamental.
Yeah.
It's not, and it's not slippage.
Okay.
It's volatility decay. That's what people call it. So if you have gas equal to 0, and actually it's not a big part anyway, and slippage equal to 0. Well, I actually made a special AMM where arbitrage traders do it. So it takes fees from AMM. So you don't pay fees, people pay fees to you to adjust your leverage. Great. You don't have slippage because you are acting as a market maker, not as a taker.
But you're effectively buying more when the price goes up and selling when the price goes down.
Buying more liquidity as price goes up, selling these liquidity as price goes down, and repaying the loan, of course.
Yeah.
And even if you...
I know, sorry, I don't want to cut you off. I think we're getting like pretty in the technical weeds. I think we can like bring it back a bit and move on when you're ready.
But what I wanted to say is that it appears that it works with if you have automatically managed concentrated liquidity, like in Curve pools. If you plug in Uniswap 2 pools, I don't see any way for that to work profitably. So you get rid of the yields when you get rid of impermanent loss. But when you have automatically managed concentrated liquidity, you earn a little bit more than Uniswap 2 pools, and that appears to be enough to be net profitable.
Amazing. Well, I want to definitely move on to the token. Maybe just before doing that, I want to summarize back to you kind of how YieldBasis works and get your take. So obviously, as we all know, right, impermanent loss occurs when token price moves, right? So if you're providing liquidity, token price goes up. In order for that token price to go up, people are buying, meaning your liquidity, you're selling that Bitcoin, for instance. And so now you have less Bitcoin to earn on further steps up, right? And so to remove this impermanent loss, we essentially need to replenish and buy more Bitcoin and maintain that leverage as price moves up. And so we're constantly dynamically rebalancing our 50-50 LP position and making sure we have the leverage to capture all these moves in Bitcoin. Is that a fair summary of kind of how it works?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, obviously a lot more devil in the details, but the end result is that, we're removing impermanent loss while maintaining a pretty attractive yield. And as Dave, as you mentioned, kind of the holy grail, right, is earning native yield on your Bitcoin without having to worry about losing it due to impermanent loss. Now, switching gears here, YieldBasis will have a token. Michael, you and I had spoken in depth about the token before, so we can link off to that chat in this description. One of my favorite things about the token is it has very strong utility, right? We have a mechanism similar to Curve, a boat escrow function for earning protocol fees. There are emission rates that are very closely controlled. There's an organic relationship with Bitcoin volatility, which makes it really interesting for YieldBasis to become this general protocol. Things build on top of it. The whole ecosystem benefit the token. So put it bluntly, like the basic question, why is there a YieldBasis token, Michael?
Right. Yeah, that's indeed a good question, because YieldBasis can, in principle, work without token. But I think there are a few things. One is that the community of potential users is a little bit beyond, well, quite a bit beyond the community of Curve users, for example. So, and it's good to have a token when you want to win users who were not your users before. And I think the biggest prize here would be all those reserves of cryptos which are earning nothing and collecting dust somewhere. So that's one thing, obviously. Another thing, while having CRV running, I had a lot of observations, right? So these observations got collected in my head, and I really, well, Curve system is, in a sense, immutable. So you cannot, like, remake Curve token. And it would be actually a detrimental thing to do if you wanted to, because there is whole ecosystem built around this token, also keeping in mind its immutability. So CRV is, well, for CRV, immutability is a strength, but also there is a weakness in that, because if we want some improvements in how CRV works, how governance works, how economics works, we cannot really do that, or at least cannot do that too deeply. So there is much less flexibility in that. And I really wanted to innovate on that and see, like, apply my observations to something. And YieldBasis seems to be a very good token to apply all of the observations I had. And as usually, I will release, well, actually it's already available, release the code I produced for the governance system, available to use in different projects as well, to kind of make the next step in how I see VE tokenomics.
Amazing. So the YieldBasis token benefits from all the years of experience and learning of what went well, what didn't go so well.
Pretty much.
Curve.
So
That's awesome.
some of the things are, well, some of the things I tried many things in CRV, and it really took some years of observations to see what these things lead to. So if you want to change something, you kind of need to do iterations, but you cannot remake the past, and we have some some good outcomes, and so it's always new token is always a new ground for experiments, as well as some place where to apply what you learned.
Amazing. So is there a world where yield basis protocol is even bigger in terms of TVL than Curve itself?
Well, actually, this is a very good question, because the way yield basis is made, it is actually impossible to make it bigger than Curve in TVL. And here is why. It uses Curve crypto pools under the hood, right? And imagine you bring 1 Bitcoin to yield basis. What yield basis does, it borrows the same, 1 Bitcoin worth of USD, pairs it with Bitcoin, and makes sure that these USD are borrowed against the combined LP, right? So liquidity is 2 times bigger than what you brought, and this liquidity sits on Curve. So it appears that Curve gets 2x of what you brought to yield basis in crypto liquidity. So that's why you simply cannot make yield basis bigger than Curve in terms of TVL.
Yeah.
Because it grows Curve. You can make yield basis bigger in TVL than Curve today, for sure. But it will make Curve even bigger.
Well, you heard it here then, I guess. Yeah. So yield basis can be even bigger in terms of Curve's TVL today, but yield basis benefits from all the years of learning that Curve has, and Curve benefits from all the TVL that yield basis.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Yeah, and also it uses the new update to crypto pools, and the same update in Curve can be used for exchange of foreign currency exchange, gold to USD and whatever. So it's the update which was actually designed for that, and I just figured out that it can be used for yield basis, and well, it looks like we're getting it used for both.
Amazing. Well, Dave, switching gears, as you know, when users provide Bitcoin LP in yield basis, right? One of the unique aspects of yield basis, one of the evolutions from Curve, is that you can either earn the Bitcoin trading fees on your LP, or you can earn kind of yield basis token emissions, not both at the same time. This has a couple benefits, right? It helps prevent mercenary farmers. It helps control overall emissions while still granting rewards to early users. Of course, no financial advice, but is there a route you would choose personally?
Yeah, look, personally, I'd probably start by choosing the Bitcoin yield. I think when it comes to my Bitcoin, I'm fairly risk off. So getting Bitcoin in, Bitcoin yield out is definitely sort of the purist's way. But I like the fact that the system forces you to choose. And so if you want that upside in the governance and long-term token alignment, the YB emissions give you that, right? And I think the way the system is designed, it will provide a real balance to the ecosystem, which is nice as well.
And of course, even if people are earning their Bitcoin trading fees, the yield basis token holders are still benefiting from those protocol fees, right?
Oh,
So,
absolutely. That's actually the whole innovations in the tokenomics. They are in this aspect. So this simple thing where you split between people who earn fees in Bitcoin, or who earn YB tokens, this simple split introduces a whole lot of interesting consequences. For example, imagine that there are not too many people who want to earn yield in Bitcoin, right? So in this case, if there are only very few of those, then well, of course, emissions would be the emissions would be probably higher, but the spending, well, let's say, imagine there are none of those people, right? If there are none of those people, then of course, you will earn fees on the whole liquidity. But where would these fees go, right? They would go to admin fees. So admin fees actually go in percentage, go higher when this when the amount of people who want to earn Bitcoin on their Bitcoin decreases. So that's good because system earns more. But you can imagine the opposite. Imagine that that everyone wants to earn Bitcoin on Bitcoin and nobody wants to earn YB token. Well, this is another extreme, kind of hypothetical, but good to imagine. If it happens, if no one wants to earn YB token, why would token emissions need to happen? So they don't. And token emissions actually decrease if everyone wants to earn Bitcoin on Bitcoin, not YB. So it appears that both admin fee and token emissions are dynamic, and they depend on where the market is. I don't know yet because it's not up yet, and I think I will watch it over the next years. But I think that in the bull market, people will earn more YB token, so admin fee will be higher. But in bear market, people will probably opt in for natural yield more, and that will reduce the admin fee, but it will also reduce the token emissions for YB. So you have less of a sell pressure. And how this works out, I don't know, but it sounds plausible. And after all, with all the DeFi, we have, I would say, a new era of experimental economics. You couldn't do economic experiments before because that would be like, I don't know, doing something you shouldn't do, right? But now you can actually afford to have some experiments in economics and confirm or not confirm some theories. So my theory is that this is a good self-regulated system, better than what was there before. But whether it will be the case, we will see over the next years.
Amazing, amazing, yeah, and a very eloquent design. I know we've obviously dug into it previously, so we can link to that video. Make sure people can dive into the deep dive into the token. But yeah, eloquent design, learns and benefits from all the years of Curve's experience, which is awesome. Maybe as you alluded to, Michael, just taking a step back for a second, thinking about the market as a whole, DeFi as a whole. Dave, over to you first. How does Kraken see DeFi evolving?
Yeah, look, I think we may finally be at a stage where DeFi is going to go like mainstream. I think you look at regulatory change with Mika, the Genius Act, along with all of TradFi pouring into the market, you'll see an acceleration and a genuine step change, and probably like over the next like 5 years in terms of a time horizon. And you're already seeing like TradFi firms making very intentional, quite defensive plays now. Um, and and it's all because they don't want to become the next Kodak or Blockbuster at the end of the day, right? That's what they're scared of. And I think the thing that most people probably don't realize that will happen is that this will be sneaky, this change. It will happen behind the scenes where DeFi will become like the financial backbone of our traditional system. And I think everyday users won't see that like in payments or possibly with your salary, like getting settled and cross-border through stablecoins, perhaps, right? So a lot of these use cases will happen behind the scenes, and then before you know it, all of a sudden, like these things will just become ubiquitous and become like everyday language that everybody uses.
It was a great vision. I think we've already started to see the beginning steps of that play out, and institutionally using crypto behind the scenes. Yeah,
right. I actually definitely agree with this opinion that DeFi will likely be used behind the scenes. I think a good example like that is Linux as an operating system. I mean, many people are used to using Windows or Mac, and Linux on desktop seems to be like a joke going on for years. But apparently we have almost 100% of websites powered by Linux, and pretty much, I'm sure, 100% of mobile apps on the back end are also powered by Linux, and every Android phone runs Linux. And it sounds like Linux is everywhere and powering almost everything as an operating system, but we are not realizing that. And I think this same thing can happen to DeFi.
Interesting. Well, taking it specific to Bitcoin, if you think about what will happen with Bitcoin over the next 5 to 10 years, what will that mean for yield basis?
Right. Well, Bitcoin is interesting because Bitcoin is in principle, it's a very simple asset. It's not inherently too programmable, right? So it feels too simple, but its power is in its simplicity. There is nothing to break in it. You can custody your Bitcoin in a and you can be sure that Bitcoin network will not break. And this is why, I guess, also because it's OG crypto asset, Bitcoin gets more and more momentum as a kind of way of storing money. Not necessarily as something to use for payments, because, well, payments, you can pay with Bitcoin, of course, but I think actually stable currencies are a little bit more convenient to use as payments. So Bitcoin feels more like digital gold, but it does get adopted this way more and more. And now we see even countries starting looking at it this way. And I think the end play will be when the United States as a country adopts Bitcoin as the major asset to use in the reserves. I don't know when it will happen, but I think this is a very possible thing to happen.
That would be certainly quite the big inflection point for adoption. That would be a whole nother level of holy grail.
Absolutely. Well, whether good or not, but I mean, it's moving this way. We have all the TradFi kind of getting eaten by Bitcoin ETFs happening. So it's not necessarily the cypherpunk future, but I mean, it's
but in a way it is.
or maybe it is. Maybe it is.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we were looking at the clock here. We've got 10 minutes left for the hour, and we'll be mindful of both of your guys' time. Just a few more questions here, if we can just be mindful of the clock. But let's switch gears, go back to yield basis. So when thinking about yield basis, thinking about kind of growth in the future, is there a North Star metric, Michael, that you have in mind for yield basis?
Right. You mean how big it could be potentially?
Well, I mean a North Star metric as in like one particular metric you most to look at to govern the success or the growth of the protocol. Like what's the most matter?
I thought of different things. One thing is how big the TVL can be, and another how many revenues we can make from it. And it's really hard to say, but I mean, in simulations we see that it's fairly reasonable to expect around 10% yield on average, right? And depending on different things, we can expect something. Well, 10% is minimum admin fee, but probably it's gonna be more, so probably 20-30% admin fee is something to expect. And this thing, how big it can be, well, probably when yield basis starts affecting Bitcoin volatility, it's kind of the ceiling. So I think we can expect like, I don't know, 50 billion TVL or something. And well, I think I would be looking at revenues which the VEYB get, right? So I don't know how big these revenues can be, but from estimates, it would be nice to have something order of I think single-digit billions, right? But we will see. I don't know. It's
not bad.
it's hard to predict, right?
Yes,
So
of course.
and this was one of the estimates, but how correct it is, I don't know. So maybe I will put that as a North Star metric for myself to look at, but definitely don't use that as a kind of solid plan necessarily.
Sure.
Yes.
Understood. Yeah, but regardless of the specific numbers, the North Star metric for YB is really Bitcoin denominated protocol fees or admin fees.
True. Well, not necessarily Bitcoin though, because
denominated
it
in
can
USD.
work for ETH as well.
Awesome.
Why not? Right?
Yeah.
It probably wouldn't work for like altcoins, but for major cryptos, I think it should work.
Amazing.
Right.
Amazing. Yeah. So lots of room to grow the TVL as well.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe some more real assets. The yield probably is gonna be not as high for real assets, but who knows, right?
Yeah. Good point. Dave, on your side, similar question about the North Star metric. Thinking about this joint collaboration with Legion, what is the North Star metric for Kraken?
Yeah, so typically like our North Star metric would be similar, like a revenue base metric, but I think another metric that like sums up like the vision of what we were trying to do, which is really comes down to the three things of making token sales themselves like fair, credible, and accessible. If I look at metrics there, you're looking for like the widest distribution of participants. So, you know, on one end, everything from like an institutional player or like a crypto degen who's just trying to grow his bag, and then on the real far end of the scale, like a retail investor, and this could be the very first time that they're trading into crypto, right? So for these token sales, metrics that like look at like a broad range of cohorts, for me is something we'll also track and be thinking about.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, speaking for Legion, for ourselves, I think that's definitely something we're super excited about, of bringing, merit-based allocation to the next level, to a wide scale. And I couldn't think of a better project. In many ways, it's very poetic, bringing it back to a Bitcoin product, of course, where it all began, right? With Bitcoin is kind of the perfect first stab at this. So, Dave, do you thinking about not just the collaboration with Legion, but YieldBasis, Dave, do you see any kind of deeper integrations with Kraken and YieldBasis in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we're starting today with the sale and the listing, but long-term vision, if YieldBasis becomes the go-to venue for organic Bitcoin yield, you can imagine much tighter integrations for like liquidity provision, institutional products, like structured offerings where, we could be offering this to Kraken clients directly, right? So like, yeah, it really opens up a lot of very, very interesting ideas.
I can see quite some products being possible to create.
Some structured products on top of that, that proxy for Bitcoin volatility. So that makes sense. Michael, as you know, on Legion and say, let's do that again. Michael, as you know, on Legion and Kraken, sales, in those sales projects increasingly will have more and more options to select and kind of target in on certain types of users, right? So maybe you want to give extra rewards to active developers or longtime Kraken users or high social scores, right? Are there any types of users in particular that you'd like to bring on to the YieldBasis community?
Well, I guess some of the users who would definitely benefit are those who kind of in crypto for a long time, but didn't really use DeFi so far too much. And there are quite plenty of those, apparently, especially in Bitcoin world. That's why essentially I wanted to start with Bitcoin as a first type of asset in there, because Bitcoin maxis are great people, but they didn't they didn't use DeFi so far because it was not really attractive, but they ironically used CeFi to lend out their Bitcoin sometimes, and that didn't work out too well for them sometimes. But well, if DeFi offers some yield for Bitcoin, which is probably better and probably safer than that, then why wouldn't they get a taste of DeFi? So that's I guess probably the ones I would love to see, but maybe there are others. Like I mentioned, Bitcoin is getting institutionalized a lot, and institutional customers probably would be fairly interested. Not necessarily though they are on Kraken, but who knows, right?
Well, there's definitely some institutional buyers on Kraken. I mean, Dave, I don't know if you want to just briefly speak to that, kind of the mix of retail and institutions that use Kraken.
Yeah, I mean, you see it everybody from, your first time like normies all the way through old school high net worth individuals now who like got into Bitcoin early days. Like, Kraken's one of the oldest exchanges that's still surviving. And why it's because of its like brand and reputation and being a security first stance,
Yeah, after all, maybe I don't even know who are the users we will see coming from Kraken. So there are really many of those, and it's probably good to meet different types of them.
And that's the superpower of doing a Kraken Legion sale, right? Is you get to see who those users are and kind of get a better sense of who you're working with.
Like
so.
we can do it otherwise when we know who the users are, so we can approach them, talk to them, and whatever. But no, we don't really know all of them, all of the types of users, and to address this broad sea of unknown. Well, maybe Kraken is good to navigate that sea.
Definitely. I can't think of a better partner, navally themed, right, to navigate the sea.
Good sea-based analogy for us.
Yeah,
Drop one of those.
exactly. Awesome. All right, so let's do this out. Do you guys each have like just 1 or 2 extra minutes to stay on here?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, perfect. So I want to end it with like a rapid fire question. So I'll do the same series of questions, maybe first to you, Dave, and then to you, Mike, and then we can wrap things up.
That was good.
So I'll just mute your microphone, Michael, while Dave is going. So ready when you are, Dave. I'll just do like a brief, prefix or. Well, thank you guys. It's been an amazing conversation so far. I want to end out with some rapid fire questions. Just a one sentence response to each of these. Dave, you ready to dive in?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. All right. What is something that Kraken is doing now that most people would say is crazy, but will look brilliant in 18 months?
This is easy. Launching token sales again.
Nice.
From the wild days of ICOs, we're back.
I love it. Complete this sentence. In 5 years, people will say, I can't believe we used to do blank.
I can't believe we used to separate traditional finance and crypto.
That is a very good answer. That's already playing out. What's one metric that's most overlooked, right? It's important, but not many people are paying attention.
Distribution quality. So like everyone looks at FTV or like TVL, but I think if distribution's skewed and too concentrated, then you get really bad effects when it comes to seeing listings and token sales in general.
That was a great place. So look at like Gini coefficient of these sorts of things. Yeah, they're really interesting. And what's a prediction that sounds insane, but you think is inevitable?
Okay. Okay. The token sales will outperform or outcompete IPOs within a decade.
So ICOs will become the new IPO.
Yes.
Amazing. Well, Dave from Kraken, thanks for your time. Of course, Michael from Curve, appreciate it as well. Before we drop off here, let's get you into these rapid fire questions. So, Michael from Curve and YieldBasis, are you ready?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. What's something that YieldBasis is doing now that most people think is crazy, but will look brilliant in 18 months?
Well, I think it is exactly what it's doing, solving impermanent loss, because it was considered to be as crazy as and impossible as, I don't know, as nuclear fusion, as private space launch, or whatever. And yeah, we'll see.
YieldBasis is building the DeFi equivalent of nuclear fusion. I love it. I love it.
Hopefully.
Complete this sentence. In 5 years, people will say, I can't believe we used to blank.
I can't believe we used to hold crypto and not earning anything for that.
Nice. Nice. Great answer. And lastly, what's a prediction that sounds insane, but you think is inevitable?
Well, I think crypto assets becoming the major asset on all the asset landscape.
So next question, what's the one metric that you think is most overlooked? It's important, but not enough people are paying attention to it.
There are many metrics which are kind
Is
of
it-
overlooked,
Maybe
but
it's Bitcoin deployed?
one, right, but I think people underestimate the power of decentralization. It's even hard to measure, but I think decentralization is what brought Bitcoin to where it is, and it's probably important to establish to measure this link and predict which other assets can get as successful as Bitcoin. But nobody can measure it properly, so we are in the dark.
Amazing. Well, Michael, founder of YieldBasis, Dave, head of product at Kraken launch, of course. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I think this is an amazing conversation. I'm super excited for the Kraken Legion, partnership to kick off with YieldBasis as a first ICO. I think it'll be an incredible sale, and people will be really excited about such a DeFi OG, of course, solving such an impossible problem of removing impermanent loss from earning yield in Bitcoin. So thank you guys both for being here, and see you soon.